Hello, my audience. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I will be reviewing Blade 3, known as Trinity. Blade Trinity. The third and final Blade movie with Wesley Snipes solo outing as Blade. I give it an 8 out of 10. Because there's a few things that's holding this movie back. Well, one of the things I didn't like in Blade's mentor friend Whistler from the first two Blade movies, his death holds no weight to the plot. It's just there for shock value. And the final villain Dracula is a lame Dracula, unimaginative pretty dude. What is this, Twilight? Is it trying to capitalize on the true Twilight franchise? Is that why Dracula looks like some sort of normal human pretty dude instead of like a vampire or a cool representation of Dracula? And yeah, so he kind of sucked. Dracula in this movie, who played a role in the Blade comics where he made his debut against fighting Dracula, where Blade made his debut in the Dracula comics fighting Dracula, and that's where he came in his debut of Marvel Comics, and in the history. I think the Dracula comics was called Tomb of Dracula run, and Blade was the Slayer and fighting was up against Dracula in the comic, and that's where Blade made his debut. And it's weird how we got Dracula, who is an older Marvel character than Blade, has such a uninspiring, unoriginal, forgettable take on Dracula. It is just depressing. As Sacha Baron Cohen's casting as Mephisto for the cinematic universe portrayal of Mephisto. It feels like a joke and a big mistake. And Triple H is in this. He plays one of Dracula's henchmen. And a hot chick plays one of Dracula's henchmen. And Ryan Reynolds is in it. And another hot actress is in it that teams up with Blade of hunting vampires. So he has a team of rookies. And one of them is Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds' version of Deadpool in the future Deadpool movies. What he'll be like. Kind of a jabbermouse and kind of an idiot without breaking in the fourth wall or his crude humor. Because I think this movie was, I forget what it was rated, PG-13 or R. I forget. It feels like, I think this is rated R like the other Blade movies, but it feels very like PG-13ish versus juvenile humor. And it was always there in the Blade movies, sometimes the stupid humor. Like the fart joke in Blade 1 was the fat, obese vampire that Blade partner frieds. And it was also it was kind of like in the juvenile humor in the sequel. And dial back more and gravitate more of the horror shock factor without the juvenile humor. That's why I think Blade 2 works as a sequel. Blade Trinity doesn't know how to lean more into the strengths of the first two Blade movies, but just leans into the weakness of the bad ideas that didn't work in the first Blade movie. Like the juvenile fart humor is back worse than ever. That was the one thing Blade 2 fixed and exited away from the juvenile lowbrow humor because it wanted to treat the audience with more respect and intelligence. And remember that it's an R-rated movie for adults, and you don't have to talk down to them with fart humor. Is what Blade 2 taught me, showed me that. And Blade 3, what the fuck? Is this a cartoon now? A Saturday morning SNL cartoon? Because I feel like this is one of the bad SNL sketches, the script to this movie. And the ending goes three ways. If you see three cuts of the movie that was released to public, all three cuts, it has three alternate takes. And both of them make all three of the outcomes make your head scratching. Why is that the ending? All three of them, even the theatrical cut and all the other cuts, feel like afterthoughts of ending without any closure to a Blade trilogy. This just sucked. The ending. It just raised my head, wondering why did he do it like that. This was definitely the weakest in the bunch, but I wouldn't call this bad. I give it 8 points out of 10 because I did somewhat enjoyed parts of it. Specifically, Wesley Snipes returning as Blade is very the highlight of the movie, and his performance is still good as Blade, even though he's given very little to flesh out his character or give him an arc at this time around, because the writers didn't think that far. But Wesley Snipes does still give a good performance in this mediocre script, so that's something. He's great what he's given, but what he's given is not that much compared to the first two Blade movies. You would think with the death of Whistler, it would wait on Blade, the death of Whistler, his father figure that was basically explained, and also his friend in the first two Blade movies, who raised Blade from a kid. And you would think that that would weigh more on Blade and come back later in the plot, or he would at least show some grief over it. But no, he brushes it off and forgets pretty much about Whistler's death. And his heroic sacrifice to blow himself up. And it has a heroic death, but it's felt more for shock value. And felt like nothing added to Blade's character. It doesn't even so it's for shock value. Wow. You know, this is stupid. I thought that was stupid. It just felt like it was so many things were questionable about this movie. I don't hate this movie, I just don't love it like I love the first two Blade movies. I give it 8 points out of 10. It's not a classic like the first two Blade movies are. Comic book classics. And I just like the first two Blade movies of Marvel classic comic book genre. First two ones were good. I recommend skipping Blade 3. But if you're curious, just for curiosity's sake, it won't hurt to watch. It's a little fun still, just not great like the first two ones. Anyway, that's my review on the Blade Trinity, the final installment to Wesley Snipes' Blade franchise. The third one, and last. Good night. Bye. And subscribe. Like this video. I hope you enjoyed this review on Blade Trinity. Blade Trinity. See you in my next video. Bye. Like this video, subscribe. Okay.